A guy who is confident in who he is. A guy who is unapologetic about who he is. A guy who knows who he is and is accepting of that. I think that confidence is way hotter.
The Young Turks recently uploaded a video called Ben Shapiro Triggered by Harry Styles, and this is in relation to the new controversy surrounding Harry Styles wearing a dress. Ridiculous, but we'll get into it.
Ben Shapiro has some thoughts on what masculinity is or what masculinity should be, and yeah, I think it's questionable to ever get advice about masculinity from a guy who bragged about not being able to pleasure his wife over the summer.
The video starts with Anna saying Ben Shapiro can't pleasure his wife. So she eventually gets into it and shows the tweet in the picture that is relating to the controversy. It's Harry in the dress and the tweet of Vogue with a quote which can be read on screen now.
Normal people will maybe come across that tweet and realize if it bothers them at all, maybe there are other things to be more concerned about, like the fact that 247,000 Americans have died from this virus, from coronavirus.
So Anna states that normal people shouldn't be bothered about it because there should be bigger things that they can be concerned about, and she references coronavirus. But if she followed her own logic, then why is she discussing Ben Shapiro's reaction to Harry Styles wearing a dress? Shouldn't you be worrying about COVID? She calls it
ridiculous culture war issues.
Yet she's fueling the other side of the argument and is now a part of the ridiculous culture war that she claims to not like. So she's already showing hypocrisy, and we're a minute in. And shows a tweet from Candace Owens and asks if Marxism is being taught to our children.
That Marxism is being taught to our children. Is it? Is Marxism being taught to our children?
And yes, it is. The lens that you see the world through was gifted to you by the cultural Marxists that possibly educated you, and without a doubt educating the future leaders in the universities all around the world. There is the theory that when Marxism failed in practical economic application, as Felicity Barringer puts it, the intellectual heirs on American campuses then shifted tack and applied the conflict power dynamic of classes onto race, sexuality, and downplayed the economic failures and taught them not in economic classes but in classes such as English, sociology, politics, where all these people are getting these Mickey Mouse degrees and coming out into the world, getting in the HR departments, and then infecting the rest of society with Marxist ideas. A brilliant article to summarise all of this was written by John Miltimore and Dan Sanchez on fee.org, and the link is down below in the description, and the article is up on the screen now. So she shows some of the tweets, and she calls the argument
just so boring at this point and so expected, right?
But is he wrong? I think your arguments personally are boring, but that's not to refute his ideas, is it? And on a side note, they claim that he's obsessed with this whole situation, but he tweeted 4 times in a reply to a viral tweet by Candace Owens. Now obviously he's going to piggyback off the controversy that Candace Owens created because he wants to reach out to more people. And they might know him already, but the chance of reaching a couple more people is there, and he'd obviously take it. It's a business move, isn't it? He tweeted 4 times, whereas you've made an entire video. He didn't even bring it up on a segment on his shows. He does not care that much.
Right? I mean, especially when we're talking about our culture and how men in government used to wear fancy men wigs back in the day.
So you bring up fancy men's wigs, but what's that got to do with anything? It's fashion, and it changes from era to era. It's culture and it's tradition. Wigs came into fashion due to balding being seen as a sign of syphilis, so it was just the easiest way to cover up the balding, and then it eventually fell into the mainstream of fashion in the 1700s sort of time period. I'm pretty sure. I'm not a fucking expert on men's fashion, to be honest with you.
The point of Styles doing this photo shoot is to feminize masculinity. Yes, that's what Harry Styles is thinking about.
And you see that sly choice of wording where she says that Harry Styles isn't trying to do anything malicious. And while I doubt Harry Styles personally is trying to attack masculinity, I do find it harder to doubt that the people behind the shoot are. With Hamish Bowles, the journalist who wrote about the fashion shoot on Vogue, for the magazine, referencing Black Lives Matter in an interview with Harry, and Harry kind of just deflecting it and saying, oh, he's using all this, all these experiences to kind of better his life or whatever like that. So, something like that. You can read the whole article, it's all out there, but it's a bit boring. It's all about fashion, it's all quite pretentious, and it's just not something that interests me. And he also quotes Olivia Wilde saying it's pretty powerful and kind of extraordinary to see someone in his position redefining what it can mean to be a man with confidence, and also referencing toxic masculinity and its prevalence in society. To paraphrase, the article's there on the screen. I just can't be asked to go through it all.
Yeah, I like your point, Anna. It's on the dollar bill. The dude's got a wig on, okay?
So now for some reason we're back to wigs. And
by the way, you know who else wore a robe?
Who else wore a robe?
Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ. And he brings up Jesus, like that's got some relevance. 2,000 years ago, fashion was different. Who would have fucking thought? The fact is that dresses are still against normality in the modern day. Why are you bringing up 2,000 years ago?
You want to call the Scots non-masculine? Give it a shot, see how it turns out.
And do you want to see what happens if you go up to a Scot and tell him he's wearing a dress?
Then you know who else wore a dress? Rudy Giuliani in an SNL skit. And you know who smelled him and said that he really liked it? Oh yeah, look at that guy, Donald Trump.
Surely this is the opposite of proving your point, saying that men wear dresses in skits. Like the whole point of a skit is to be laughed at, it's to entertain the audience. And to say that a man wearing a dress is funny goes against the normality, because it's not normal to see a man wearing a dress, and that's why it is funny in a skit. Especially drag and all that, it's to entertain you. So bringing up this as a point just completely contradicts it, because it's saying that it isn't normal. And Stars is wearing a dress seriously, and the activists around him are pushing in order to normalize wearing dresses.
I think that there's plenty of stuff, plenty of characteristics to critique someone like Steve Crowder on, right? But I don't care what he's wearing. I don't care what his personal style is. I don't care how he cuts his hair. I just don't care. I don't care about anyone's personal choices that have absolutely no impact on other people's lives. If you want to express yourself by wearing a dress, cool. If you think masculinity means that you wear like a wife beater or I should say a tank top and cargo pants all day long, great. If you feel like you need to wear military style gear all day long in order to feel manly, awesome, I don't care.
She says she doesn't care, but she spent the last 5 minutes crying about Ben Shapiro's opinion.
But as a woman, let me just give guys who actually care about what women think some advice.
If this is gonna attract women like you, I think I'll pass, but thanks for the help though.
Okay, for me, a man who's constantly obsessing over masculinity is not hot.
We'll get back to this obsessing over masculinity comment.
A guy who is confident in who he is, a guy who is unapologetic about who he is, a guy who knows who he is and is accepting of that. I think that confidence is way hotter.
Sounds like you're describing Ben Shapiro there, love. I think you might have something to tell us.
Look, no one is denying that there are some physical differences between men and women. Obviously, he always does straw man arguments because Harry Styles wore something he didn't like. He's making it seem like the left is saying, no, there's no difference between a man and a woman genetically or in any other way.
So Cenk calls out Ben for strawmanning, and then literally in the exact same sentence, strawmans Ben. Like what? He didn't even say anything like this.
But wait, Harry Styles didn't say that. Nobody said that. You made that up.
Nobody said anything like this. What is going on? It's like strawmanception. Cenk is arguing against an argument he claims was made up by someone which was made up originally. I'm genuinely confused. Cenk is just going on a rant now, and literally none of it is relevant. It's just absolutely frying my brain.
I was like, yeah, you caught me on that one, guilty, right? So it's not like absurdity doesn't exist in the world, it does. Okay, we've even dealt with it. But this ain't it. This is basically you saying, haha, he looks gay, and we used to be tough guys, and I don't like this, right? But Ben.
And to all the right wingers out there, I've got a real question for you guys. Why do you care?
I don't.
Why does it make you insecure to the point where you gotta lash out at him?
This has got nothing to do with insecurity, and you know that. You're just trying to deflect and demean the original argument that is being made, and the points that they do have, which are valid. As we've seen, the people who organise this photo shoot do have that sort of agenda, and to just laugh it off and pretend that it's not there is disingenuous.
Like, guys who are secure in their masculinity aren't going around asking women all the time, like, am I masculine enough? I'm masculine enough, right? I mean, I think there's something wrong with our masculinity.
This argument was never made. No one's asking for validation. This hasn't happened. Why are you arguing against it? You keep calling out strawmans, but you're strawmanning yourself. This is no argument. This hasn't been made.
You know, so my husband has a podcast about masculinity called Behind the Masculinity, okay? For me, a man who's constantly obsessing over masculinity is not hot.
You know, so my husband has a podcast about masculinity called Behind the Masculinity, okay? For me, a man who's constantly obsessing over masculinity is not hot.
Okay? For me, a man who's
constantly obsessing over masculinity is not hot.
You know, so my husband has a podcast about masculinity.
And then she spends the next 30 seconds rambling about her husband's concept of masculinity. I don't care. Didn't ask.
Anyway, that's my random rant on that.
The two greatest conquerors in world history were Genghis Khan and Alexander the Great. They conquered the most land, they had the biggest impact, etc. Alexander the Great was bi. So what, he wasn't masculine enough? He took half the known world, he wasn't masculine enough. I'm sorry, Ben Shapiro, if he failed your test of masculinity.
What the oh my God.
Because you got brainwashed when you were a kid, maybe because it was religion or whatever.
That's a pretty woke statement there, saying Ben's been brainwashed as a kid. If you apply that same logic to Islam and political beliefs as you do to Judaism, you'd have no base, mate. You're now invalidating Ben Shapiro's lived experience. I'm sick of this hypocrisy, man.
Stop telling us how to live our lives.
And he wraps it all off by saying, stop telling us how to live our lives. That is definitely getting clipped. Thank you very much, Cenk.
And by the way, you know who else wore a robe? Jesus Christ.